Neil, thanks very much for joining us. A lot of people will obviously know you from Schroders, but what they may not know, I guess, is that you've been writing a novel. Just tell us a little bit more about that, because I believe it's focused around the financial crisis.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Richard. It's called Pass the Parcel, and it's set, as you say, during the global financial crisis, so really between sort of 2008, 2010. And there's an eclectic bunch of characters in the book that all either created to, acquiesced in, or suffered from the financial crisis in some way. And I think one of the reasons why I wrote the book was that in sort of fictional space, I didn't think that the financial crisis had been perhaps seen enough by enough people. I think it's such a rich part of what was happening in a particularly important period of time, and is a great backdrop to a story where you've got lots of different characters seeing the same thing but through different lenses. So that's really why I wrote it. Although there are lots of non-fiction books, and the film The Big Short obviously was out there, which are fantastic, I didn't think that much had been written in the fictional world. So that's why I did it. And yes, there's a group of eclectic characters. There's a hedge fund manager based in London, a lovely guy called Lester Fitzgerald, who's made the biggest bet of his career against subprime mortgages, gets the bet absolutely right. But of course, the investment banks won't hand over the money that he's owed until it suits the investment banks to do so, because on their balance sheet, they've still got some of these subprime mortgages and can't possibly mark them to market until they've got offloaded them onto somebody else. Hence the title Pass the Parcel. So you've got these financial packages being dished out all over the world. You've got a poor young Mexican couple in San Francisco who have bought their first house, their dream house. But unfortunately, the finance was provided by a subprime mortgage, the very same subprime mortgages that Lester Fitzgerald was betting against. And we see the world, of course, through their eyes and how they try to fight to hold on to their house. We see a future leader of the Conservative Party, a politician who's based in Suffolk, whose wife is having an affair with an ex-professional footballer. So there's a local angle because, as you know, I now live in Woodbridge in Suffolk. Joe McGrath is a guy who works in real estate. He's a fund manager like I was. And his brother runs a small property company, but his brother has lent money from a bank, and that bank is about to appropriate all of his property assets because he's fallen behind on some of his debts. But unbeknown to him, the bank haven't dealt with him as they should have dealt with him in terms of asking for their money back, and they keep asking for more funds, etc. So we go on the journey with him as well. So there's a whole group of different people in there that went through the financial crisis and come out at the other end, and everybody changes all the way through the book, of course, because you can't go through that experience and be the same person at the end of it that you were at the beginning.
And that's really interesting. Do you think it actually changed your kind of view, rethinking about the crisis? Did that change your view on, I suppose, either who was to blame or how it came about, or those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think it probably did, because whilst I didn't want the book to be a technical book, and I wanted it to be work of fiction, and I wanted people that just generally like to read fiction, I wanted them to enjoy the book. So I couldn't go into too much detail about the technicalities. But of course, you had to do a lot of research to be able to talk about these things. So I did do quite a lot of research. And I think, the more I dug, I lived through it, and I was working in the financial services industry. So I did have a pretty good idea of what was going on. But when you look into the nuts and bolts of some of these cases, I think it did change my view. And I think some investment banks really did behave really, really poorly. And I don't think I quite understood just how poorly they behaved. And I think that comes out in the book in the battle that Lester Fitzgerald has with the investment banks as he's running his hedge fund. So I think it did probably change my view slightly on it.
So are there people from the real estate side that we would recognise? Should we be looking to find out who's who, or are these purely fictional characters?
I don't think anybody will be able to work out who's who, but like probably most people that write, my characters do have an element of people that I have met along the way. You tend to write about your own experiences. So yeah, I don't think anybody would be able to work out who people are. But yes, I have to confess that some of those characters are based on people that I have known or worked with in the dim and distant past, yes.
Very good. Well, I look forward to reading the book. Thanks very much for joining us, Neil.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.